Welcome back to the Creative Herd. It's 2020. I hope everyone's staying healthy. I know I'm doing my best to do the same. I wanted to do this episode because I think I'm reaching realization and figuring some things out. And I kind of wanted to share it because, I hope I'm not the only one going through this kind of thing, but I think this winter, especially coming into 2019, 2020, I think it's taught me a lot. A lot of things changed in my life, and a lot of things I think I learned or kind of accepted. And those things were just to do with letting go and not fighting, I think, myself or my inner voice. I constantly have this inner voice nagging at me, telling me to do something and stay busy and make something. It's just always kind of there. And almost every winter that I can kind of remember, I struggle to keep that inner voice at bay and struggle to stay creative and push myself for ideas, come up with concepts and put my head down and make something. It could be literally anything. I can't sit still and let myself be stagnant. I think I have some sort of irrational fear that if I don't make something, I'll lose the ability come springtime. And for me personally, my creative outlet is to do with video and sometimes photo. And I think the irrational fear is if I don't pick up a camera or make a video or something, I'll just forget how to do it, and I won't be able to do it come the summertime. Which is fine. That's a cool fear. But I never really let myself go through the normal human seasons of ups and downs. I was always trying to just, better myself, which is, I don't know. Now that I say it, it's not a bad thing. But I always just kind of blamed it on SAD, the seasonal depression. But I think it's something separate to that. I think it definitely gets triggered by SAD. For me personally, it definitely is triggered in the wintertime, for sure, when it's a little harder for me personally to come up with ideas. But I think it's more of just a creative depression, Sometimes you feel burnt out, you don't want to create stuff, and that's totally cool. But I think for me, it's something I really heavily struggle with of I don't like feeling that burnt out, and I think something's wrong with me that I can't figure out why I'm not being creative. I think generally, especially if you're making money at what you do in a creative field, I think you might get caught up in making stuff, getting bettering yourself and learning and most importantly, making money. And it's that constant uphill battle of oh yeah, I want to do this, make more money, and just get that line to rise. The thing that I'm trying to realize is that that's not life. It's not one linear line graph moving up all the time. It's just not realistic. The seasons ebb and flow, and I think my thinking is that it's okay if I ebb and flow. I don't think I ever accepted that, but this is something that I'm coming to a realization to. Most living things also go through seasons and are affected by it and come back stronger in the spring. Trees go through a season, they lose their leaves, and the kind of the most important thing, in fall it's so beautiful, all the colors change, and then everything's desolate for a while, and that could be the creative depression, and then in the springtime it blooms again, it ebbs and flows, and that is life. That is realistic. It's not linear. Yeah, I think that's just the concept of that is what I've been struggling with for, I think, probably my entire life, and I'm hoping that I'm not alone on that. But I think where it kind of stems from is, for me being a creative, I literally can envision infinite outcomes and infinite paths to what I could be doing and what I could be using my skills for, and kind of applying different things and coming up with projects. And there's so many possibilities of what I could be doing with my time. And it's almost overwhelming at times. And to the point where it literally comes paralysis for me. I think right there is where it triggers the burnout, and it triggers sometimes this creative depression. This paralysis comes when you are feeling vulnerable in the fact that like you can't really create anything. So like I'm kind of not upset, but you're burnt out, but you're looking for ideas. You're looking to get back into creating something, anything. And you're just trying to brainstorm and bring ideas to light. And I think that is where the fault starts to begin, at least looking back at my path and what I've done in the last couple of years. Like those are the moments that it's just kind of like I'll do anything that I can figure out and back to a certain extent. Like looking at all these ideas and paths, it's not necessarily a good or bad thing, but it's just creating work. I'm just looking to do something. I'm looking to create something. It's making work so I can still say to myself, like, yeah, I'm being creative. I'm getting better. I'm working on myself. Don't worry about it. I came up with some crazy random stuff just to keep myself busy over the years. But the bottom line here is that my heart was never really truly backing any of them. So it didn't keep pushing them forward because deep down I didn't really want to, or I didn't really care if it actually did fail. It was just something to keep my head above water at that current time. And I don't know, I can share some of these ideas. It's like some of them they're not bad ideas. It's just like keeping busy. Like I started a t-shirt line years back about fixed gear bikes and just riding in the city, and I wanted to like capture that feeling and screen print some t-shirts. Not a bad idea, but like who cares? Especially when I don't care, it's hard to like push that product. Like, yeah, I love riding fixed gear, cool, but I don't know, I don't really want to push that on somebody if that's not also your lifestyle. I also tried to start a website called Get Lost Club, which is essentially a website that brings you to a map, basically. And on this map would be like pins. So it'd be like a map of the GTA with a bunch of like location pins on it. And so you would click one and it would highlight a certain location. And I was focusing on locations that were, like good hikes or breweries and, like abandoned places, just like cool things to kind of check out. And with each one, I wanted to kind of create a video surrounding it. So with that one, pretty big appetite to kind of create that. And it was like I don't know, I think it was just a lot to take on, and for sure was stoked on the idea. And I still am. It's still kind of a sick idea, but my heart really isn't backing that idea. It's not like, I don't know. It's cool, and I think it kind of ends there. It's just those things that, you just do to keep busy. I've signed up for courses to learn new programs. Like I remember, I think last winter I signed up to learn a program called Cinema 40. And again, like, yeah, it was sick and I was learning something new, but I also didn't really care. And I'm sure that you've been in a class, whether it was in high school or something, that somebody's talking and trying to teach you something and you're just like, yeah, I don't care. So it's like, why invest your time into these things if in the end it's going to be a failure? It doesn't make any sense, and you have to kind of see that before it actually comes. There's a bunch of these things, and don't get me wrong, they were all fun and great ideas, but at the end of the day, I was just making more work for myself to keep that inner sad voice, I'm going to call it, at bay. Like I just didn't want it nagging at me. And I think, yeah, you really have to focus on like where you want to put your energy to, because for me personally, it's not a good feeling when you start something and you spend a couple months on it and then you just let it go, unless you know at the start that that's what it's going to be. All I want to say is like make work that matters to you. That's it. Just make sure your heart's in it. And that part of it, I haven't really figured out. Like, how do you know you're truly your heart's behind it. When I was making all that stuff, when I was like, designing shirts and screen printing, of course I was into it and my heart was into it at that moment. But for the long haul, you really need to consider the long haul. Like, how far are you going to push it? And that, I think, is the question that you need to ask yourself. Like, how far are you willing to take that? How long are you willing to do it with no money? How long are you willing to do it if nobody watches? Anything that I've come to the conclusion that it is worthwhile for me to start and continue doing and put my time into, those things take time to make those decisions. They develop over long periods of time. It's not like you're just going to randomly come up with great work and great ideas. You might have it and then have to work on it. So that balance of working nonstop when you really want to work and pushing yourself to work, and then it kind of fading away, that's okay. That's really what I've learned is when you're working, work and focus, because whatever you focus your attention to will grow. And then when it's not there, don't force it. It's okay to just let it be and just listen and experience things. I think there's something to be said that, like, if you're not working, you're not inspired, just be present and be able to experience things. That's really important, especially now, because we're so, like shoveled content, whether it's the news or anything. Just remember where your life is and participate in your own life wherever that is going and experience that, so you can put that experience back into your own work. Because if you don't have that experience, where are you drawing from? I heard this idea on another podcast by Andy J. Pizza. He put it into perspective by talking about a band's first album. Usually it's a collection of like their experience for the last like 10 years or however long, and then they come out that album and they release it into the world and it's great. And then they write a second album and that album is just about going on tour, and it doesn't do that well because the input versus the output kind of sucks in that scenario. It's like you took all this time and energy and experience from, whenever you were a young kid and into an adolescent, and then you wrote about it, You had some real experiences to draw from. And then to try to output an album just from going on tour, there's not enough input there to give you the real substance behind that. If you zoom out a little bit, I kind of realize that that's sometimes how I operate. I'll just take, but even to a worse point of like, this was my past week. What can I draw from it? Because I'm just so content, like just make something, put it out, just make something. And it's like, that's not realistic if you don't care about what you're creating. Not to say that you can't put out great stuff in a short period of time. It's just the mindset behind it. Like, be present and be aware of what you're creating and really truly make sure that you're into what you're creating. I feel like I should have mentioned this off the top, but all this stuff is fully focusing on personal, like, creative passion and passion projects, because I'm aware of, like, I do it 9 to 5 every single day. I do not enjoy necessarily, maybe I don't, sometimes I enjoy it, but like, I don't really believe in the content that I'm making, but it's a paycheck, and it allows me to focus on other things and put my heart and my enjoyment and my focus to other things in life while, doing what I love. And that's okay too. This was a slow, long realization for me, this whole thing. This basically, seasons are normal. That one sentence took me about 26 years to figure out. My, like, being bummed out and me being depressed comes from not being able to experience and not being able to create because of whatever, winter, like, whatever. It's so, like, menial looking back on it, but, like, that is the sole source of where it comes from. But I don't think I was looking at it like that it was okay, because nobody had ever told me it was okay to experience what I was experiencing. and to just lean into it, to be accepting of like, it's okay not to create something. It's okay to do nothing. It's okay to be present and, focus on the next week, the next month, that like just be, and you'll be better off the next week, the next month, if you actually are present in the time before you, even if you're not fully enjoying it per se. It's a really weird concept to say out loud, but this also kind of prompted me to think about, just checking in with yourself. I've definitely said some of these things on the podcast before, but it's good to check in with yourself, just because you've always said, you're a videographer or cinematographer, just because you've always said you're an editor, a video editor for the last 5 years, doesn't mean you still want to be called a video editor or a photographer or like a painter. And it's that premise of, would you still let your 12-year-old self order off the menu for dinner? Even if they had full access to the menu. They're not just choosing off the kids' menu. I think, like, what I'm trying to say is that taste changes over time. So when you look back over a long period, it kind of looks drastic, as, you as a kid, I'm hoping, have opened your palate. But what about the last 5 years or even 3 years? How have you changed? How has your palate changed? What foods have you started eating that you didn't your entire life? The clothes that you donated, or what artists did you stop listening to, or did you stop liking because your style has changed? It happens, and it can happen quickly without really even noticing it. And these are all questions to kind of ask yourself if you want to check in. Like, what do you like now that you didn't this time last year or 3 years ago? Your style and taste will change with time. It'll happen without you knowing it, or at least it did for sure with me, because I would have self-identified with a totally different title 5 years ago. Even like almost every 2 or 3 years, I think there's a new interest where I get really obsessed with, or something like that, and maybe 3-5 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, no, I'm a photographer. I would identify with that, and I'd be okay with people calling me that. But now, no, like, I would not be okay identifying with that title. That wouldn't make me feel comfortable. As I got deeper into my career, I think definitely my hobbies have changed, and my tastes have heavily changed. And earlier I would have definitely self-identified with, a cinematographer and editor. And that I would have said, who are you? What do you do? I'm like, oh yeah, I'm Spencer. I'm a cinematographer and editor. That's what I do. Been doing it for the last 5 years, 10 years, whatever. But today I don't think I would define myself as that. And I would just leave it at a video editor right now. And that would be my title. And I would, not to say that I don't like shooting, but I would like to keep that to myself. I would like to keep it near and dear to me, just so I can keep having fun with it. Because there's also something to be said with, if that's what you do, people are going to judge you for it, even if you don't want them to. So for me, someone who's been making music a lot lately, and, I've played guitar like pretty much most of my life, but I wouldn't identify as a musician, because I do not want people to like step into that world for me. This premise is a hard one kind of to grasp, even for myself. But a good reminder is something that my dad said to me a while ago. He said that whatever you give your time to is what defines you. And again, that's okay. There's seasons, and seasons are normal. We just went through this. If where you are, you don't like how it defines you, because you can always move through it, and another season will be holding something totally different for you. But yeah, wherever you spend your time is what defines you. I don't know where you are, or how you're spending your time, but if you're spending your time, like working landscaping 9 to 5 and only doing what you love for a few hours, that's okay. And that was my reality for a really long time, for sure. But that is what defines you. Your title is that, whether you identify with it or not. And it's the same now, just because, like, I was a music video editor for a minute, but I wouldn't identify with that right now. I wouldn't identify with a photographer. I wouldn't identify with a cinematographer. You move through these seasons, and I'm sure it's totally different with other people as you change careers, but constantly check in yourself and do not blanket statement yourself, because I don't think it allows you to accept your season. Just accept where you are, and if you're not, realize that, because I think that's a key thing that kind of happened to me. Is I realized that, like, I'm not spending my time as an actual editor. Okay, how do I get there? Sure, it takes a couple seasons to actually get there, whether that's years or months or whatever, but you will eventually move through the time as long as you are focused, and whatever you focus on will grow. Yeah, to wrap up this episode, seasons are normal. Whatever you give your time to is what defines you and will grow, for sure. Whatever you focus your attention to will inevitably grow. And I don't know. Sad is okay. Creative depression is normal, and embrace it. Lean into the creative burnout, because you need that experience. You can only experience the positive if you experience the negative. You will never know how it feels to be happy unless you are sad. So take that with a grain of salt and keep making great work. I'll see you in another episode.